Hey, so can everyone see me? Or at least
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes, we can. I
Okay,
can.
let's take a look at this on some facts of creation. I want to point out that so far we've been studying these other 5 major worldviews. I mentioned them in the beginning. I'm going to mention them again because I want you to see that all these other worldviews are evolutionary in some aspect, and Christianity is not. So let me just show you. This is just kind of an overview, but it's very important because evolution is a foundation of some sort in every other worldview except Christianity. So I believe we should not be in any way trying to bring it into Christianity. But here are the other worldviews. Marxism, which was manifested through the Communist Party today, believe in a social political evolution. Human history will arrive at a purely communistic, classless society. And we are facing China, Russia, North Korea, and a lot of these collapsing Marxist states, which Gilberto will be aware of as Brazil tries to transition out of a Marxist state into a more open democratic structure. Sure, there's huge opposition to the president. But this is a Marxist view, that it is inevitable in their view, based on evolution, that evolution is leading toward a communist state, as though that is what evolution wants. And that is what evolution's goal is. But again, I ask you, how can we superimpose a goal or an intelligence or a purpose upon a random chance process called evolution? It has no goal, it has no structure, it has no purpose. So this is a faith step. This is a nasty belief system, Marxism, that is trying to convince the world that they have the answer for social political evolution. Okay, the second one are the secular humanists. You know, our prime minister, Supreme Court judges in the United States, they have bought into a biological evolutionary view that we progress through history. In fact, it was the judge in Roe versus Wade 1973 who shifted out of law and the US Constitution, which protects all persons for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, all people are equal. He shifted out of that and went into philosophy and theology when he said, well, what is a person? Well, where were the sharp lawyers of the day who should have immediately said to the judge, excuse me, that is a theological question. What does the Constitution say? It says all persons. If you want to redefine person, we need to have a philosophical and theological discussion and debate, but you cannot move outside the Constitution by yourself. But nobody checked him, and he just made a decision based in biology, not philosophy or theology. He said, let's see, a person begins at 23 weeks. This is outside the realm of the Constitution of the United States. This is beyond what the judge is authorized to do. Who gave him the authority to make a biological decision without any philosophical consideration? This is how these courts become activists and simply declare rights that don't exist. And in doing so, they have condemned millions to death. So the secular humanists base their view on biology, and this is what guided Hitler, and this is what guides the communists today, is this idea that they have a higher evolved state. The cosmic humanists, the Hindus and Buddhists believe in a spiritual evolution, that we direct and develop our own God consciousness, a new age. So again, evolution is part of the thinking of these worldviews. Postmodernists also believe in a punctuated macroevolution, that they don't like the slow evolutionary process, but they believe there's no God, so evolution must have happened, but it has no purpose or meaning except what your individual sexual identity group or culture or ethnicity thinks. Truth is what you think, but still they do commit themselves to a macroevolution. And Islam is also evolutionary in the sense of a theistic evolution. So interestingly enough, Islam has 5 stages of theistic evolution. And this is so fascinating. I've actually done a teaching on this, comparing Marxism and Islam have very similar objectives, goals, political aspirations, and they're both based upon an evolutionary view. One is a biological evolution. Marxism believes in socio-political evolution, that they'll get to the top of the pile in history through 5 stages: slave societies, feudal societies, capitalist, socialist, finally communist. Interestingly enough, Islam has 5 stages of theistic revelation or evolution. And why would there be 5? You know, it's fascinating that there's these 2 views. Both are some of the most dangerous for the church in the history of the world. Communist governments and Islamic states today are the ones waging the wars. The majority of conflicts on earth today, think about it, are caused by radical Islamic terrorists or failed states with nukes, or communist countries threatening the world like China, North Korea, and Russia. So they both base their ideas on evolution. Islam believes in 5 prophetic revelations from Abraham to Moses to David to Jesus and finally Muhammad. So Abraham, Moses, David, Jesus, Muhammad, those are the 5 stages, the 5 books that they got. And they're claiming that Allah, their God, kept revealing himself over and over, but everybody failed. And therefore, he had to send the final prophet, Muhammad, who brought the perfect book, which corrected all the errors of the other ones, amazingly, isn't it? And they have the final prophet. There's no more stages. And so they are tyrannical in their ideas of implementing this theistic evolution. They want to eradicate the church, to implement Islamic Sharia law all over the Western world. And in the United States and Canada and Europe, we're seeing the implementation of Sharia law being brought in through millions of Muslim immigrants that we bring in, and then set up their mosques and let them run. They run for government in our free societies. They become senators. They become reps. You've got some in the United States. They begin to dictate Islamic Sharia must be protected. They begin to shut down free speech, that anyone who speaks against Islam is guilty of Islamophobia. You know, so both Marxists and Muslims, or let me put it this way, I won't refer to the people, both Islamism and Marxism are enemies of the free world, because they both want to implement their theistic evolution and their biological evolution, claiming that they each have the final stage of human social political organization. So I find this very interesting. And that's one of the reasons I will in no way accept the idea that evolution is part of the Bible. So let's move on to this. So what about theistic evolution then? I won't go into all the details. There's so much material on this, but I am not into the idea that God started evolutionary process 13 billion years ago, and it's just been running along humming naturally. And we got all these animals, apes and birds, fish, mammals, and everything all happily produced by this system, because here's the issue. There is no transition between any of these species. So evolution itself is false. It's not science. Adding God to the beginning of it doesn't make it work. You can't add God to anything to make a system work. And it doesn't say it in the Bible. So here's some of the issues here. These following Bible doctrines would have to be changed, altered, if you're going to accept the idea that God used evolution or started it or made it happen for the complexity of the world. You would have to get rid of the historicity of Adam and Eve. They could not have been people. They would have had to have been some hominid or some kind of creature that somehow got a spirit, I suppose, but who knows when. So they're not real people, because who would be the forebears of Adam and Eve? Where did they come from? You'd have to get rid of the worldwide flood of Noah. And of course, when you listen to theistic evolutionists, who are, sadly, many of them are Christians, teaching in their Bible schools in the States or wherever, that, you know, there wasn't a worldwide flood. Let's be reasonable. We don't have enough water to cover the earth, da-di-da. You know, they are undermining the Bible. They don't accept the days of creation. So no, God could not create in 6 days. No, it's impossible. It takes a lot longer to grow an apple tree than that. Just look how far away the stars are. Come on. They're billions of light years away. It's impossible scientifically for this to happen. Listen, it's impossible if there is no God. But if there is a God who created something from nothing, then it's highly possible. It's called a miracle. You know, Jesus did miracles. The dead were raised, the blind healed, the deaf heard. People want miracles. They accept Jesus' miracles, except the most important one, that he created the universe, right? They want a God who can heal the blind, but can't create the universe. I mean, come on. Matter came from somewhere. The only explanation, and the Bible says, is it was created by God. The other thing that will be destroyed if you bring evolution into the Bible is the image of God. We're no longer made in his image. We are apes. We are simply connected back to the whales in some kind of an evolutionary tree. And you will definitely get rid of the fall of mankind, because if we've been evolving for millions of years and we came out of apes and Adam and Eve were hominids somehow, when did the fall occur? Was there a fall? How come there was death before Adam and Eve? That means 3.5 billion years supposedly of Earth history, and I don't believe that 3.5 billion. But you know, death and disease and eating and killing were all normal because that process produced a hominid, and that hominid became Adam and Eve. So when did the fall occur? When did sin come in? What is sin in an evolutionary system? So these all will change if you bring evolution into the Bible, theistic evolution. We need to look at this. Science actually depends on biblical ideas. The whole scientific enterprise is based on certain assumptions which can't be proved scientifically, but which are guaranteed by the Christian worldview. So you need to see this. Actual science comes out of the Bible. The Bible provides the philosophical foundation that explains how science can emerge. One, it explains the laws of logic. Why does logic work if our brain is just chemicals? There are laws of logic that work in the entire universe. Where did they come from? How about the orderly nature of the external world? How could that be if the cosmic principle of chaos and randomness created this complexity? There would not be order. We would be in chaos. How about the reliability of our cognitive faculties to know the world? If our mind is the brain, then you're just chemicals. You have no way of knowing the objective world outside of your chemical operation, and you don't even know if you can trust your chemical operation in your brain to tell you things about the external world, because how reliable is a chemical chaotic principle? So we know we don't even live by evolutionary ideas in thinking about our brain. We accept there's a mind, and that we accept the mind can perceive the external world. Well, those are biblical principles. We also know the objectivity of the moral values that science uses, like truth and falsehood, like fraud. You know, they use principles that can't be generated by the scientific method. Science could not even exist without these assumptions. And yet, these assumptions cannot be proved scientifically. They are philosophical assumptions, which interestingly are part and parcel of a Christian worldview. Thus, religion is relevant to science in that it can furnish a conceptual framework in which science can exist. More than that, the Christian religion historically did furnish the conceptual framework in which modern science was born and nurtured. That was William Lane Craig from What is the Relation Between Science and Religion? So let's look at some of the facts of creation. I'm going to cover 3 scientifically verifiable facts. These are not just statements by creationists, but are facts founded by science. Facts number 1, DNA, DNA contains a coded information system, which is specificity with a purpose. No one has ever observed the spontaneous creation of information or a communication system by a purely natural physical process. You clearly cannot derive the genetic code from physical laws. It has every indication of being designed. Okay, that is a massive blow to evolution. The creation and existence of information that is not physical. When you read a book and you're looking at paper with ink printed on it, you are getting information that is not in the ink. The information is not in the page. It is coming through a medium of communication. So where does information come from? It must come from a mind. There's only one source of coded information, that is intelligence, and that means God. So DNA is coded information system. All of us have observed the creation of information and communication systems by intelligent beings making conscious choices. We see it every day. Books, computers, phones. The information in the DNA of living organisms is not the product of the chemistry of the DNA any more than the information of a book is the product of the ink molecules. Since information, codes, and communication are at the core of DNA and living things, we have 100% inference to an intelligent creator, with no current scientific evidence suggests otherwise. 100% inference to an intelligent creator. So I gave this slide in the last one. One of the biggest headaches is information coming through the study of actual science like DNA. As scientific discovery advances in the field of genomics, the genome and its diversity of elaborate interlocking languages speaks of vast levels of intelligent bioengineering, not a purposeless random evolution. Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins, a geneticist with a PhD from this university, says, the language systems in the genome continue to reveal nothing but unimaginable complexity, something he sees as a complete contradiction to evolutionary predictions. So complicated cells are leaving no room for evolution. Changing one life form into another sounds easy if all that's required is the tweaking of a few genes. But the truth is that just one change in either the gene or non-gene areas, which is to say almost any area of DNA, can produce a myriad of downstream and or upstream effects for diverse functions, such as embryonic development and daily cellular housekeeping tasks. So there's no way a random process can produce this complexity. It is quite clear that evolution would involve so many, so diverse, and yet such specific genetic alterations along the way that the resulting string of events would be so unlikely as to be almost indistinguishable from a miracle. Yes. So I like this cute little picture here in the phrase, isn't it amazing how random processes can create libraries of information? And nobody would ever think that the information in those books was produced and organized randomly. And yet the information in our genome, DNA, and chromosomes is vastly more than the information in all those books. Information and consciousness. The current laws of physics do not explain the origin of information or consciousness. Recognizing the existence of a designer is not anti-scientific. It just acknowledges that there are some things that are not reducible to mere physical laws. For example, you cannot reduce the rules of any computer program to mere physical laws. They obey physical laws, but they also follow additional rules set by the programmer. To pretend there's no programmer is completely unscientific. Smoke signals can also carry a variety of messages, but the meaning of the messages are not dependent on the charred ashes suspended in the air that are transmitting the content. Twigs on trees have no information content, but if you arrange them on the ground into the shape of the word help, then they now contain information. So information is dependent upon the order which you arrange the matter and or energy that is conveying the information, not on the matter itself. Look at this DNA repair mechanism, which has a code of information to help guide it. The reason our genetic material does not disintegrate into chemical chaos is that a host of molecular systems continuously monitor and repair DNA. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry 2015 awards 3 pioneering scientists who have mapped how several of these repair systems function at a detailed molecular level. So here are these Nobel Prize winners, Thomas Lindahl, Paul Modric, and Aziz Sankar. Now, the question here, people, is if evolution is an unguided, random process of mutation, how on earth would there be a molecular system that monitors the overriding system and repairs broken DNA? Somebody would have to tell some part of that molecular system that something isn't working properly. It would be like the red light on your dashboard of your truck. If you're out of oil, the red light comes on and warns you, hey, you're out of oil. Well, that warning light was put in there by the creator of the truck, the designer. It has information coming to it from the engine that the engine has no oil, and the information then is transferred into a little red light that you're low on oil. You have to have a designer. The engine can't produce repair mechanisms for itself. And yet this is what the atheists are saying, that our molecular systems decided, they animate the inanimate, to repair something. How are they going to know it's broken? How on earth does any molecular structure know anything? Another fact of creation number 2, there's no known observable natural process by which new genetic information can be added to an organism's genetic code to increase the complexity of the organism, changing it to a fundamentally new organism. No observable process to add new genetic information. You need to realize this. We need to challenge people when they, in your science labs at university, professor, somebody other who's a chemistry professor, ask him, where can we see the natural processes where new genetic information was added randomly to an organism? There is no such thing. That's a good quote from Dr. Etheridge, who is senior paleontologist for the British Museum of Natural History. Another fact, number 3, it has never been observed, never, that life can come from non-life. Therefore, since there's no observable evidence for molecules to man evolution, you have one choice left for the origin and diversity of life: intelligent design or creation. So going back to one of the big questions, where did order come from? According to Paul Davies, British mathematical physicist, the greatest puzzle is where all the order in the universe came from originally. How did the cosmos get wound up if the second law of thermodynamics predicts asymmetric unwinding towards disorder? So who wound the universe up in the order it is? And we know now it is unwinding as energy is used up. But you have to have a designer in order to create order. Some of the hallmarks of design are irreducible mechanisms that cannot evolve step by step. Irreducible. You've got the human eye. You've got any sort of eye. There's absolutely no process that can be shown to evolve an eye that isn't working for millions of years because it's evolving in pieces, one bit at a time. There's no way to evolve a cell, a living cell, in steps, because there's thousands of pieces of machinery with coded information inside one cell that protect it, feed it, clean it, nourish it, and do all these things with information. It's impossible to evolve a cell, a piece of this machinery at a time. It's irreducible in its complexity. So somebody created the human cell from in a complete whole. It did not evolve in pieces. That would have to be God. A second one here we see is complete optimum design that requires planning. There's no semi-evolved, shouldn't be involved, it should be evolved, semi-evolved birds. Why aren't there half species walking around? Why aren't there millions of quarter species in transition between reptiles, birds, mammals, fish? We should see millions of half and quarter and 5/8 things in these processes, and the fossil record should be full of billions of examples of these semi-involved, semi-transformed species. They're not. Why is beauty part of the created order? Beauty for the sake of beauty, like a peacock's feathers. That speaks of God, doesn't speak of random processes. And extreme similarity speaks of a common design, which is evidence for a common designer. And there's also extreme diversity, which shows us that they are also products of design. So there are many also man-centered features that are designed just for man. So people say, well, how did he create then? Did he use evolution? Well, I want to show you what it says in the Bible. Psalm 33:6, the heavens were made by the word of the Lord. He spoke and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast. God did not use some random process of evolution. Jeremiah 10:12, he hath made the earth by his power. He hath established the world by his wisdom, and hath stretched out the heavens by his discretion. Jeremiah 51:15, he has made the earth by his power, established the world by his wisdom, stretched it out by his understanding. Isaiah 44:24, thus says the Lord thy Redeemer, and he that formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretch forth the heavens alone, that spreads abroad the earth by myself. Isaiah 45:12, I have made the earth and created man upon it. I, even my hands, have stretched out the heavens, and all their host have I commanded. So we can see here, and I want to show one more slideshow in a minute, but we can see here that the Bible does not support an evolutionary view. And I want to go to one of the most popular evolutionary views in the next slideshow, progressive creationism. And this is taking over Christian universities by storm. This is a harmonizing of creation with a billions of years old universe, but it sacrifices many of those points of the Bible that I mentioned, that theistic evolution sacrifices. The flood, who is man? Are we made in his image? Are Adam and Eve, were they hominids? And the fall. These are all sacrificed, but we'll see that in a minute. But from what we've seen so far, I see nothing in the Bible anywhere that promotes any one of those forms of evolution. I see no biological evolution anywhere in Genesis. I see no spiritual evolution, self-guided evolution that the Hindu Buddhists declare. I see no socio-political evolution guided by the Marxists, and I see no biological produced by the secular humanists. So I cannot accept any form of evolution being superimposed on the biblical text. We have to accept what revelation tells us and wait for science to catch up. And that's exactly what's happening as real science looks at the atoms and the universe and many things. We are coming to a vastly different conclusion than a billions of years old universe. And the Bible does not show us that it is that old. So I'm going to go to that now, but we'll just close this session and take questions.